Okay, hello. My name is Graham Dodsworth. I'm a solution architect from NHS Digital. So why am I here today? We've recently migrated our NHS Digital website onto the Bloomreach Platform. Two aspects to that, the CMS and the on-demand hosting side. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. Okay, so who are NHS Digital? So based in the UK, we provide national services to the health and social care system, so things like spine, personal demographics, electronic referrals. So NHS Digital manages and runs those services, but they also do kind of the information side of things, so they collect information and data from all the different service providers, bring it into NHS Digital, apply some data management, store it, process it, and disseminate it where appropriate, but also produce statistical publications that will end up on our website. So that's us. Okay, so before I kind of launch into the main body of the slides, I just wanted to set a little bit of context. So there's two sites you can see up in front of you, two channels. The bit that I'm talking about today is the bit on the left. So that's the professional channel. So the people who access our website, NHS Digital, they're professional users. So that's that bit. That's the Bloomreach bit. The bit on the right is the NHS website. Used to be called NHS Choices. So that's the bit where maybe you've got a rash, a headache or something, symptom checkers. You want to find where your GP is. That's that bit there. That uses a different technology. I'm not going to talk about that today, but I just wanted to make that clear. That's the bit I'm talking about, the Bloomreach bit. Okay, so why am I here today talking at a Bloomreach conference? Basically, we had some drivers for change on the website. We were running a previous CMS on a previous platform, and the commercial arrangement was coming to an end. We had to get out, basically. We had to re-procure. We had to, decide what to do. So we also had a very short timeline, pretty much less than 6 months. We had to do it all in a very quick amount of time. We didn't have a lot of time to play with. Complexity, and I'll kind of cover this on the next slide. We've got, I think I've listed 300 there, but I think it's actually gone up to 400, isn't it, Roger? So we're actually a very, very complex organization, the number of different services and information that we provide. We're incredibly complex, which kind of reflects the NHS and social care that we service for. So I think it was last year we did, as an organization, we did a capability review looking at the capability that NHS Digital has, and we kind of concluded that we needed to transform ourselves. We needed to implement a digital experience platform to transform the way we do our business, the way we interact with our customers. We needed a step change, so we didn't just need a vanilla CMS, for example. We needed something that had some bells and whistles, some personalization capability. So that was identified by the organization. Okay, so this slide is here to show you the complexity. So if you look at this bit here, you can see a word search cloud. So these are all terms that our website users have typed in, and we've taken it out of Google, presented it in Microsoft Power BI if you're interested. But the key point is that we're extremely complex and varied, the things that we do. On the left-hand side of the diagram, you've got our users. So as I say, they're professional users, they're academics, researchers, decision makers, all sorts of professional people, all after different services, all wanting different things from NHS Digital. So we need to find a way to connect these people with these services and information. Okay, so the DXP CMS and hosting selection process is my next topic. So this was quite complex. Let's talk about the non-functional requirements. So if you look at the top left graph there, you've got a Google Analytics graph, and on the top right as well. So what you can see there, it's a very regular sawtooth pattern. Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., our users kind of start using our website. It gets kind of busy at lunchtime, and then they go home and don't tend to look at us until the following Monday on a weekend. So very predictable, really. The only kind of blip to mention is on the top left. May 2017, there was the WannaCry ransomware incident, and we got a huge spike in traffic, people wanting to visit our website to find information and to find out what to do to protect their organization from the ransomware that had just been released. So although it is normally boring and predictable, our pattern, there's going to be those spikes in the future. People will be hitting our website, so we need it to be available. I've got 99.9% availability. That's absolutely critical there. We need a secure platform. I'll talk briefly about penetration testing, security testing in a minute. Website accessibility as well. So we strive to meet the AA, AAA standards on our website. So those are some kind of non-functional aspects. I've also put in the figure of the number of pages we've got, 9,434 at the most recent count. So that gives you an idea of the size of our website. Okay, so our first decision was whether to build a new CMS or buy a CMS effectively, or possibly reuse. So going into this process, we recognized that we had quite limited development resource. We weren't going to have a team of 10, 20 developers. It just was not going to happen. So we pretty rapidly concluded that we needed to have something off the peg that worked. So we kind of rejected the build option fairly quickly. In terms of reusing, we had a look at the Office for National Statistics in the UK. They built their own CMS, but we kind of again concluded that it wasn't the way to go for us because we didn't have the development bandwidth to kind of go with that type of approach. Okay, so Bloomreach Experience Manager 1 is cut to the chase. Why did it win? The open source credentials massively important to NHS Digital. So the core CMS, Hippo CMS as it's known, I think the name may be changing soon. I'm not sure, but it's an open source CMS, so that allowed us to evaluate it very easily and just start using it, and we found we liked it. It's Java based, so this was an interesting one. We initially looked at things like Drupal, PHP based. But at the end of the day, we actually had to rule them out because internally, PHP was not going to be a language that our internal software development profession were really that interested in supporting. More excited about things like Python maybe, but Java certainly very much. As an organization, we've got a lot of Java capability. So that was a kind of a differentiator. On-demand version 1, which I'll talk about, the fact that Bloomreach offered a CMS as a managed service platform, fantastic, really like that. So leverage existing proven components. Well, I've kind of touched upon this. We did our research, we looked at Gartner, etc., and we kind of determined that it's a mature product with loads of great DXP personalization stuff coming through, touching on the AI functionality, machine learning as well. So that's something for the future. Bloomreach commitment to regular ongoing security testing, including monitoring and resolving security issues. So the section on the Bloomreach website that regularly lists the minor releases and the security patches that happen in them, that's fantastically good. That is exactly what NHS Digital need to see from our CMS. We don't want to be worrying about that stuff. We want someone else to worry about it, and then we just reap the benefit. Total cost of ownership. So the enterprise version, which we've got, Bloomreach Experience Manager, the enterprise service wrap, and the CMS as a managed service, the on-demand, which I mentioned, actually proved to be affordable to us. So NHS Digital, as you might have heard, is not cash rich. It has pressures on its resources. So we think we've achieved the right balance with the product that we've got here. Okay. Okay, right, so this next one, host your own. So we came into the project thinking, we're NHS Digital, we've got a lot of technical expertise, let's host our own. So, let's stand up the infrastructure, probably public cloud, AWS, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. The organization at the moment is going through a lot of restructuring at the moment, and it proved to be a risky approach if we went down that route. So we had a chat to the guys from Bloomreach, and they told us more about the on-demand platform. We looked at it, we experimented with it, we liked it, we went with it. So so that was good. It meant that we could actually hit our delivery timescales. We weren't having to waste 6 months and miss our deadline whilst we were trying to stand up our own platform. Okay, right, so yeah, we went with Amsterdam-based Bloomreach On-Demand version 1. What can I tell you about that? You probably know most about this already. It's a proven service, 99.9% availability, critical for us. We evaluated it. We actually found that the online documentation was minimal to non-existent, but that was mitigated by the fact we had some experts to help us get on board. So we started using it, and it did work. We concluded it was less flexible than a host-your-own solution, but it was the right thing to do, so we went with it. Okay. Right, so at this point in my talk, we've chosen the CMS, we've chosen the hosting provider, so Bloomreach again. What happened next? Okay, so we decided to do open source, so we created a GitHub organization, NHS Digital website. We created our repositories, and it's all open source. So anyone here today who wants to have a look at our code, you can see it. If you have a Bloomreach Experience subscription, you can build it straight away because it's got some experience components which I've actually listed. So we're actually making use of the URL rewriter. This has proven extremely useful. We've, got 5,000 to 10,000 URL rewrites, which is quite a large number. That all works pretty well. Advanced CMS search, we use that. Enterprise forms, we started using that recently. That's very good. The relevance module, we're just beginning to experiment with that. And the crisp functionality, we're already using that now. So enterprise forms, we've introduced with the Google reCAPTCHA. And I believe we're using the crisp functionality to basically orchestrate the API calls to Google. So that's fantastic. That's live and running. Okay, right, so the developer bit. So if you look at this, you can see there's a kind of a neutral face. So developers kind of happy. There's lots of online documentation, but maybe not always what they needed. Sometimes they'd be bumping up against that lack of documentation. So as an architect, I kind of helped push us towards the Bloomreach CMS solution. So when we started with our initial supplier partner, InfinityWorks, they were very experienced with Java, but not Bloomreach Hippo. So at the beginning, I was kind of like nervous, is there going to be an issue here? But luckily, we had one of the Bloomreach trainer staff, William, who's here today, came in and basically very quickly did some proof of concepts for each of these tricky topics for the developers, and the light bulb started going on. It was all happy faces, and it was literally transformational when William came on board. The developers, they shifted up a gear. William showed them, how to do what they needed to do. So the tricky things at the time were faceted navigation, grouping of documents into time series. So we have statistical publications that maybe are released every month or year. We group them into time series publications. And the best way to implement a robust and automated deployment pipeline as well. That was tricky, but we got there. Okay, right. So, So for the beta, we didn't have a Bloomreach partner, but for the main website migration, we did. So that was Valtech. Technical challenges, security. I've talked about the penetration testing. We've, in fact, done 3 this year. So that's taken a lot of time, but it's been of great value. We know that we've got a battle-hardened product out there. So that's all gone really well. File upload size challenge. This this did prove difficult. So with on-demand, there seems to be like a 10 megabyte file size attachment limit, which is there to protect the underlying JCR, which I think is MySQL. So the idea being that you don't have these massive blobs in the database causing performance issues. So we had to get an integration created between the CMS and AWS to get that working. So the experience that CMS authors now have for certain document types is they can create a document and they can upload large files to the CMS, and it will actually go up into AWS. The CMS manages the workflow, so at publication time, the document gets published, but also that's synchronized with AWS. So the object in AWS becomes public at the same moment. So you've kind of got a transactional, atomic transactional publication. You know, we don't want the business users having to log into AWS GUI and click a button. That's just no good. So we solved that. We'll see whether it causes any headaches down the line. But thanks to Minos for helping to implement that. You know, really appreciate you coming over and helping to solve that. Lack of encryption at rest in on-demand. We use enterprise forms with the mail form behavior. It briefly stores the data on disk in on-demand, unencrypted. So our security people said, you know, you need to sort that. Well, we can't at the moment, but we have mitigated that by the forms data cleanup job, which runs regularly, so that we've kind of mitigated that risk. Redirects, we had a lot of them. I don't really want to talk about redirects. It's too upsetting. Okay, so here's our architecture. Bit on the top left in blue is Bloomreach On-Demand version 1. The bits in green are kind of our application. So you can see the website, CMS, the JCR. Relevant stores included. As I say, we're not really using that, but it's kind of ready to start using. Integration with AWS, I've just been talking about. Some of our assets are zapped over to S3. Presented from CloudFront, CDN, via the files.digital URL. We also push the CMS site and security event logs from our application in on-demand. We push it over to Splunk in AWS. That works really well. And for the website user form data, we've actually got it integrated with NHS Mail. So that channel there is encrypted. So user fills in the form, hits submit, the CMS gets it, and then you know, sends a message over TLS to NHS Mail. Email goes to the right team. So that all works really well. Integration with other third-party services. We use live chat on the website. Google Analytics, surprise, surprise, and CookieBot, which I'll mention. We also use SiteMorse, which I'll show you some slides in a minute, for various different types of monitoring. So what on-demand environments do we have? Well, if we split it into two phases, the developer phase, developers have laptops, but we've also got it's actually 3 on-demand environments, which developers can deploy to when they want to. We also have a kind of phase 2, which is an automated phase, which some of the next few slides will talk to you a bit more about. Okay, how do we perform the migration? So we started off with a legacy CMS. The supplier exported all of the content, binaries, etc., to JSON, securely transferred it over to us. We then had Groovy scripts to actually sort of poke the content into the CMS. So we had a number of dry runs of that, but when it came to the final implementation, nightly test database backup was created by the infrastructure people, and they simply restored it to production. We made sure that that was okay, and at the point when we wanted to flip over, basically we changed the DNS to point it to on-demand. So that all worked really well. So we actually delivered slightly later than we'd planned, but that was actually due to the extra security testing that we needed to do, not anything else. So yeah, we migrated. It's been a great success. Testing. So we have unit tests baked into our code. We also have acceptance tests baked into our code. The unit tests always run whenever you build. The acceptance tests are kind of optional for developers. Yeah, so acceptance tests, Selenium, kind of headless browser-based testing. with Cucumber and using the Gherkin scripts. They kind of work sometimes, but they seem to be a bit flaky. Something to do with Selenium grabbing hold of the kind of the object in the document model, and then the CMS changing under the bonnet. I don't know a lot about the technical details. I'm not a developer, but it is flaky. So if anyone's got any suggestions for that, I'd be interested to know. How am I doing for time? Right. Okay. I'm running out of time. Performance testing, Gatling. So we basically have a load of automated simulated tests to blast on demand. We ask the infrastructure people to kind of give us stats. We look at Gatling, compare the two. Performance has been excellent. Absolutely no worries about performance in on-demand. It just works. Code deployment pipeline. This is like super cool. So we use three online services here. GitHub, for obviously the code repository, Travis for the kind of automated building and continuous integration, and Amazon Web Services. There you go. That's a complicated slide, but this is a really cool slide. All you need to know, the top left is the last bit where any manual intervention happens. So the top left is when a developer checks their branch into master. Well, they do a pull request. When the pull request is approved, basically, all the magic then happens. Travis builds it. If everything's good, the pull request approver will click the button to merge it. And then it's Amazon Web Services has got a link into GitHub. It triggers a code build in AWS code pipeline. That ends up with a deployment. Well, the application gets packaged up, tagged, uploaded to on-demand, and deployed into UAT. So that's kind of all on day one. At 2 p.m., kind of a message goes out on Slack to say, here's what's going to be deployed tomorrow. Midnight, we have a nightly Travis automated build that's flaky due to the automated acceptance tests. The real magic then happens at 12 noon the next day. It just gets deployed. So there's a job being set up in Rundeck by the automated process, and a deployment happens. So there's 2 nodes, I think, in on-demand. It deploys to one, and then it deploys to the other. So there's kind of 0 downtime, or possibly 6 seconds or something. But it just works. So it's automated. So we've got one developer at the moment, and all they have to do really is check in the code into GitHub. It's super simple. Integration with Slack, I've kind of touched upon this. Basically, when the stuff is happening in GitHub, Travis, AWS code pipeline, lovely messages appear. So I've actually managed to get my name in some of the Travis stuff there, so I'm quite pleased. I've actually done a few commits. How's it working in the real world? So this is possibly the most exciting slide. That is our performance of our website. So the bit on the left, I'm colorblind. I think it's orange. Is the performance on our legacy system. So we went live in April, so there's a bit of a swap over there. But if you look in May onwards, I think that's green. Massive performance increase moving to on-demand. So if there's anyone here from the infrastructure team, massive pat on the back. This is fantastic. Also, the availability, 99.9%. It's absolutely hitting that. I checked this morning. The last month, 99.9. Fantastic. Really, really good. So there's some performance figures, fantastic. Accessibility. Okay, so we started off 511th out of all the NHS websites that are out there, and apparently we're down to number 2. So our accessibility, our AA and AAA, that is fantastic. So I have nothing to do with that, literally nothing, but I'm just here telling you about my great colleagues and what a good job they've done. Oh, we're number 1 now, apparently. So that slide's out of date. Yeah, okay, thank you for that, Roger. That's brilliant. So yeah, really, really proud of this. GDPR compliance, a topic I know everyone's interested in. We use CookieBot, so that gives us the ability to offer the user consent opt-in for necessary cookies or, bells and whistles cookies. That works really well. And we've also created a load of content for GDPR. Okay, the future. I've got 10 seconds left. That's my future. So Single sign-on. So there's a real problem with the NHS Digital, all the different websites we offer. The fact that the users get a very kind of flaky experience with lots of different websites with slightly different look and feels and lots of different sign-ons having to re-register continuously. So single sign-on is something that we really, really want to do. How are we going to do that? We're going to use OpenID Connect. So basically, identity provider, separate the authentication service from the actual app. So we're looking at doing this. This will give us two benefits. Good for users, but also we can put content behind a sign-on, which is really good. Security, we want to introduce AV server-side. We don't want to be serving up viruses. It's bad for business, bad for everyone. Replatform, maybe on-demand version 2, Bloomreach Cloud, we'll see. Structured data, schema.org. We're dipping our toes into that with some success. Really important for public search engines to be able to index our data. You need to make things super simple. Schema.org gives you that. Document types, consolidation. So we have a load of different websites, as I say, with NHS Digital logo on. We want to try to get that number down. We actually want to move some of those websites onto the NHS Digital website proper and the underlying CMS. So that's a big thing we want to do. Digital quality management. So at the moment we have a central team who do most of the content creation. We want to actually unleash that. We want to have more distributed editors using the CMS. But what we don't want to do is them releasing terrible content. We want it to be readable. We want it to be accessible. So integrating with something like Yoast or Yoast, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, and Sitemorse, thank you, is something that we want to do. So we've had a few demos from Bloomreach. That sounds really exciting. Bloomreach Experience version 13. Well, Peter talked about it today, so I'd like to know a bit more about that at the conference. That's it. I've run out of time, but yeah, just a final big thank you. It was a multi-geographic team. We had people in Leeds, Manchester, Exeter, Southampton, and of course in Amsterdam. It's been a great success, so I'm really pleased to have had the chance to tell you all about it. Thank you.